The MyArcade Gamestation Go, first seen at CES as the Gamestation Portable, is expected to release in just a few weeks. Now, initially described as a handheld version of last year's Gamestation Pro, this new portable has the potential to be much, much more. I'm going to run down everything we know so far, what we can expect, and some of my wish list items for the Gamestation Go right after this.
This video brought to you in part by Tommy and the Order of Cosmic Champions. This exciting and heartwarming coming-of-age Gen X novel is available now. Check the link for more info.
Hey there, welcome back to GenXGrownUp. I'm John, and I am a Gen X grown-up. Thank you for taking the time to click on this video. If you were at the MyArcade booth at CES this year, then you would also know there is no debate that the then-named Gamestation Portable was the standout. The elevator pitch was basically, remember the 2023 Gamestation Pro? It's that, but a handheld. Now, as I record this, and knowing the holiday target, full details on the GSG have got to be weeks, if not days away. Certainly not months. In fact, I was postponing doing this video, thinking surely I'll know more any day now, but, lacking having any more information, let's look at what we do already know about the Gamestation Go. It has the hardware to surpass the Gamestation Pro. They even said on the floor it's upgraded internals. But since we're starting at the Gamestation Portable, let's briefly recap the history of the GSP. The Gamestation Pro was officially released October 31st of 2023, leaking out to some retailers a little earlier. Now, it included 200 plus games. Those were mostly Atari 2600, Atari Arcade, and a handful of 5200 and 7800, plus some additional bonus games that were not Atari games, but many people said were kind of put on there to pad out the 200 number. However, we quickly found that because it had an SD card, you could add games via that SD card. It was a little clunky, there was no folder structure or anything, but I did a video on that and we covered it in great detail here. You could add thousands more games, and I think on top of the GSP's initial appeal, that expandability is what really has given it a life. Now, we saw a firmware update from MyArcade in the form of version 1.30, which fixed some problems at launch and also added even more games that you could play from the SD card. A few months later, and a community firmware came along that allowed us to dump the contents of the internal memory so that we could add our own games to the main carousel. You didn't just have to go into that SD card menu. And since then, some geniuses over at Atari Age have done even more with the Gamestation Pro. They've made it run other RetroArch cores, meaning it could run, ColecoVision and stuff like that. It's quite a bit more involved than just dropping ROMs, but so much has been possible with that. It's no wonder the GSP has been so popular. Now, since their release of 1.30, we've not seen any official updated firmware from MyArcade. My guess is that the focus over at MyArcade lately has been on the new Gamestation Go. And if these are, in fact, sister devices, it's possible that once the GS Go is released, we may see some updated firmware for the GSP. But as the Gamestation Go has evolved since January, they may be diverging so much that they're not going to run the same software package at all. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But to that point, let's talk now about the Gamestation Go. Initially, it showed at CES as the Gamestation Portable. They advertised that it had upgraded internals, meaning more powerful than the Gamestation Pro released in 2023. It has a 7-inch screen, has an HDMI output. If you'd like to view this on a television or something, you can do that. It has a paddle controller, plus now a trackball controller and a keypad, that numpad controller. Around the back, it has 2 USB-C ports, so you can connect hardwire other controllers. Plus, the big thing most people wanted to know, yes, it does have an SD card slot, so like the Gamestation Pro last year, this one lends itself probably to expansion. Also, they noted at the show, though we haven't heard anything about it since, that the idea is with all these controls, when you start a game, the control that you need is going to illuminate. The ring of light around a button or the joystick or the trackball or whatever will light up so you actually know what controls of the mini on the device you need to play the game. That sounds amazing, and it also sounds like the first thing to ditch if you're getting behind, so who knows if that will happen. And all of that, by the way, has a target price of $149. That's a lot of stuff for not a lot of money, I guess is what I'm saying. I think it's We've seen handhelds, things like the Steam Deck and stuff like that. Those are hundreds and hundreds of dollars. With all the memory you want, maybe pushing $1,000, $150. So maybe we have to temper our expectations a little, but you never know what My Arcade is going to pull off. Now, you might remember in July, they did provide me with this thing, a 3D printed prototype of the updated version of the Gamestation Go. And quite a few things were changed since we saw it at CES. It got thinner. They improved the D-pad and actually put a plus on it so that it's not so flat. It's easier to feel just without looking at it. And they added shoulder buttons that weren't on the original one they showed at the show. Now this suggests way more possibilities to load more games on it, both at the factory when they ship it and also for us. There are no 2600, 5200, 7800 or arcade games that need shoulder buttons. So why add them if not to provide for expandability? That's my hope. They also reorganized the control layout. They moved the keypad, numpad up a bit on the right so that it wasn't tucked in that rounded corner. And they showed that they now have stereo front-firing speakers. So all of that has only fueled my anticipation for the Gamestation Go, which I've also nicknamed, as you've heard, the GSG. Although GSG, GSP, they sound so similar, we'll just have to roll with it. From going hands-on with that prototype in July, I'm thinking that's probably pretty close to the final design. For me then, how the GSG is received is going to rely on the hardware's performance, but even more importantly, on the software features. Now, on the hardware front, we know, as I said, it's supposed to be even more powerful than the GSP. That's great. It has a paddle on there. Now, one of the complaints that myself and so many people have said from the GSP is, that's great that you gave us a paddle. Why not a spinner? The cost can't be that much different. It's easy for spinner to simulate a paddle, but a paddle can't simulate a spinner. So I'm hoping that dial, which I'll call it, rotates all the way around and does not stop. That lends itself to driving games, things like Tempest, Major Havoc. It just is way more flexible and versatile than a paddle. So I love the feel of that improved D-pad. Now, I've only felt it in the 3D printed, but it feels better than the flat kind of pocket player. And again, those shoulder buttons, the addition of those, well, that's fascinating. I mean, there's almost no reason I can think of to add those unless you're going to allow us to do way more with it. So then there's the question of the software, the game selection, right? So I have to think with a gamepad and shoulder buttons, we can get more 5200 and 7800 titles in there. And maybe that's going to mean fewer bonus games, right? Load it up with more Atari. There are more than 200 Atari games available in the library. Why just load it up with random games when it could be Atari games? To that point, I will mention, at the show, it was labeled the Atari Gamestation Portable. I've not heard it called the Atari Gamestation Go yet. Maybe it still is licensed. Maybe it's full of Atari games. I don't know that. I'm assuming it is, but we'll see. I'm hoping, because there's so much stuff in that license to have. Also, with the keypad and shoulder buttons, Jaguar is now possible. I don't know if the internals could run it. I don't know that much about Jaguar, other than I have heard it's a little harder to emulate in terms of hardware requirements, but maybe. We'll have to see. Again, with that keypad, Atari acquired Intellivision. Intellivision controller had a keypad. Please have Intellivision on this thing. It would be a great first place for Atari to roll out Intellivision. And I guess the flip side of that is this is licensed by Atari. Maybe Atari is holding back Intellivision to do something themselves, but I don't see how this does any harm to roll out some of those titles into a handheld like this. And speaking of handheld, if this thing is branded Atari and you hold it in your hand and it does not have Lynx games, I may revolt. At the very least, you have to be able to add them. Let me play them. You're not going to give them to me. Give me a way to take the ones that I own and load those onto the game. Now, speaking of loading your own games, by the time of version 1.30, most major platforms were supported on the Gamestation Portable. Now, some games it was possible to emulate, but not optimal. The most obvious omissions were things like Intellivision and then ColecoVision and the Atari 8-bit. But for all these other consoles to be doable on the Gamestation Go, that's going to rely on something we were asking about post 1.30 on the Gamestation Pro. Controller button mapping needs to be supported within the software of the Gamestation Go. It's something we wanted on the GSP. It's something we need on the GSG. And it's probably one of the key things I'm anxious to see if what got included in the software or not, especially knowing what the demand was on last year's product. It's a lot. It's a lot, I know. And I'm thinking maybe by the time I drop this video, I'll know more. But I'll tell you if that's the case. In the meantime, are you interested in the new Gamestation Go? If so, what's on your wish list for this handheld version of MyArcade's GSP? Is there one killer app that, if supported, would make it a must-buy for you? Well, you can bet I'll be following this one closely, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments. As new information rolls in, I will link to those videos here and here. In the meantime, it's just other coverage I've done. I certainly hope you found something to enjoy in this video, though, and I cannot wait to talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.